So your father was a businessman?
He was an administrator,
For what kind of
the
administration?
government.
The government.
So he was like a high level administrator
So every day he wore a suit to work.
every day, every day.
I like it.
Because I've been an accountant for 20 years. So I've always liked to look good because I know that how you present yourself, that's how clients will take you.
I agree with that.
Especially since I grew up, I was in the UK and there is very formal.
If we could solve one big problem here together, what would that be?
I would say going to the next level, which means scaling my business.
Okay, define scaling.
So double the clients, right? And the cool thing is that my staff, like
They can handle it.
yeah, they can handle it. That's a great point, David. I think for me now, the big challenge is to transition my tax prep as a team to tax planning.
Why do you say that?
So I spent like 2 3 years training them on tax prep because I'm kind of I have a high attention to detail. So I want them to get to that level because as an accountant we need to have standards, right? So for me to maintain the high quality of standard because of my reputation, I have to be diligent. So the thing is to train them to that level so they're nearly there. Now the thing is to transition them to tax strategy.
Okay, so do they have the bandwidth, meaning time, number one, to do it?
Yes, they can.
Now, do you have enough strategy clients for them to handle right now? Like, would they have enough work?
So I think for now I'm trying to because I have like now I'm very busy with implementing the strategies, doing the tax plans. So I've started training them on how to design the tax plans, and then the next thing is to train them on how to onboard clients.
Okay, okay. That's a good, fair enough point. What do you spend most of your time doing right now, every day? If I went and looked at your calendar or talked to you through a week, what do you spend most of your time on?
That's a great question, David. Most of my time is spent on. So every morning I drop the kids, exercise, go to the office, spend 1 hour replying text messages, checking emails, and all those kind of stuff. And then around 11 we have the coaching calls with you guys.
Yeah.
Then 12 o'clock I have 1 hour, 2 hour meeting with my team, training them, reviewing tax returns if possible, and then start training them on tax, different tax plans and things like that. And then after that, I spend the rest of the day having either discovery calls or annual programs or implementation of the tax strategies.
Okay. It sounds like you have a decent schedule. Which one of those things do you love doing the most?
My passion is tax planning, right? Speaking to new clients. I also like implementing the tax strategies because I like to challenge my brain and things like that. And then also selling the annual plan, selling the assessments. That's what I like.
Okay, so you like the client engagement,
Yes.
not so much the deliverable. And I think what you mean when you say, correct me if I'm wrong, when you say something like, "I really like the strategies part," I think you want to learn it once and then not have to do it again. What I mean by you like to crack the code just so you fully understand it, and then after that, it's not a challenge anymore, right?
Yes, yes.
So you wouldn't want to do it. Like for an example, if you had a client that had a serious situation, you would step in, you'd solve it, and then you'd say, "Okay, now somebody else should do this after this," right?
I think for me, coming from an accounting background, I like to learn to keep upgrading myself. So for me, I still like to do the actual tax plans, especially this new complex client I have. I like to take on new challenges.
There's nothing wrong with that.
My nature, I don't know how to, maybe that's a problem.
Well, I don't know. It depends on how much time you're spending on that.
Mhm.
How much time are you spending doing this?
So on and to design a tax plan like these guys might be complex. So it's gonna take me about 2 hours.
Okay, 2 hours. How much did you charge them?
25.97.
Okay, to get the assessment, how much is the annual program going to be worth?
We're not there yet, but I'm looking at 15K.
Okay, that's not bad. So you're going to build out the assessment. Now, what would be the difference between you building out the assessment and somebody else on your team?
My team is not at that level where they can do it yet. So I'm training them on building assessment.
How do you train?
So it's just one on one. So we have group training, we have Zoom meetings, and I show them exactly how
Are they in person or virtual?
it's virtual.
And when you train them, do you just teach or do they show you what they're doing?
So initially, I'm teaching them, showing them exactly what I do, but I train them to have a critical mind, not just to be like robots, right?
Yeah.
To think critically. So that's kind of my training model.
So we have to find a way to get things off of your plate, right?
Yes, definitely. Most of my leads come from social media.
And how many
This month I've had like seven, six, seven.
and how many of them close?
This month I've actually closed about, I think I closed all of them.
Well, this is really good. Okay. So we know that and how much were you posting this month?
So now I'm getting to the habit of posting at least every other day.
Okay. So we'll say 15 posts.
Yeah, yep.
Okay. By the way, if this is numbers are correct, you're crushing it. You put 15 posts, got 7 clients,
Yeah, I just show them my lifestyle. That's all I do.
but they were all 24.97s or like
Yeah,
tax time.
24.97.
So you're telling me you post 15 times and got 7 new clients.
Yeah, people reach out to me. So I got invited by, a guy on Instagram who has a community. So he does like Airbnb and he has a big community. The first meeting was explosive. Yes, and they absolutely loved it. One guy, from the moment I spoke about tax planning, this guy was so excited. He just booked a discovery call and paid for the assessment right away. So my approach is to educate them on tax planning first. So because I realize that when you educate people, they take action. If you don't educate them, they don't. I didn't know about tax planning, right? I used to wonder, but how do wealthy people pay 3% in taxes? I was an accountant. I didn't know. But once I got into the game, boom, that was it.
When did you realize that there was a difference between filing taxes and being a tax strategist? When did you realize that?
That's a great question, David. So it got to that point where I was also paying a lot in taxes, right? And I got frustrated. I said, but something has to happen. And then I obviously got to know about you. And from that day, it's like the pinnacle of my career. It took me to that level that I've always wanted in my life. You guys really took me to that level, right? Through your program, I got to understand really the differences, an in-depth understanding of the differences between being a tax strategist and being an accountant. I could see the differences. And trust me, accountants don't save money on taxes.
What other challenges are you facing in this areas of maybe your time or your team or maybe business?
Right now, we are at a stage where I'm transitioning them to the tax planning. I'm going to use this time to start training them like a crash program on onboarding to designing the tax plans, um, preparing all the slides, because those are things that I don't want to do, right? So that I will just focus on doing the discovery calls and delivering the annual programs, and then everything else is done by my staff.
That is exactly the ideal situation. So that's why you're doing the cert.
Yes,
That'll help a lot. If they would go through the cert and get
yes,
all the tests.
exactly. You got it.
All this works out, what's your next challenge?
Yeah, if it don't works out, I think the next thing will be to. I've not yet tried paid ads.
Yep.
And I think I'm getting to that point where I need to try paid ads.
It's a combination of so many things that one thing affects the other thing. And so what you're going to be going through is this, why isn't it working? And then one day it works and you're like, this is great. The next day it doesn't work. And so you go through an emotional roller coaster every day, but you're ready for that. I know you are because it's an investment you're ready to get out of. And I just want you to know it's going to be the biggest thing. And Dan's going to get you and you're going to get ads here. So that's really good.
I love challenges, Dave. Oh, I love challenges. I like to try new things to manage a successful practice and advisory practice and being a father. I think for me, it's something that is priceless, right? I love what I do. I love my family. So combining the two for me is like, what else can I do, right? Being a father is the best experience. For me, it's about what legacy am I going to leave, right? And my first son wants to be an engineer. My prayer is that the last two become tax advisors. So this is what I plan to do, right? Take them to events. If they were not in school, I would have brought them here, because that's how you start coaching them. And trust me, David, if they start by the time they are 12, 13, by the time they're 20, they will be 10 times better than me.
I would never claim to have like, built, I mean, I can say I built a great team, but I can never say that it was intentional. It was, like, a lot by accident. When I first had my first offices back in, 2008 when I opened my first office, I knew there was value in hiring people because I didn't know everything. I wasn't a tax person, so I had to hire people. And my first hires were basically anybody who had experience. And I didn't know if they were doing the job right or not. I just knew that they knew more than me. So I knew that what my job was from the beginning was to go get new clients. That was my role, my responsibility, and that's all I did every day. I went out and I marketed our business and I brought back clients. So I had employees and they did the returns. And the first year, 800 returns. I said, well, this was kind of easy. Let's do that again. So I opened 2 more offices. So I had 3 offices year 2. I said, I'm gonna hire people, they're gonna do the returns, and I'm gonna do I'm gonna do marketing. Well, we start recruiting, we can't find people to file the returns, like, we don't have enough employees, so I have to get in and learn about taxes a little bit, and I gotta help. So I start helping with the tax process, and I start, try to market my business, and we didn't grow very much. We went from 800 with 1 office to about maybe 1,100 with 3 offices, so we didn't grow that much. And I said, "Okay, well, next year comes around because it's seasonal business." And I said, I'm gonna have to really make sure the ones that we had last year, preparers, come back. Because if they can come back, at least now I can just add a few more and it'll free up the time for me to go get new business. I went back to all the people who worked for me and I said, hey, come back, please, begging people. And I said, I'll pay you more. So the next year we do a little bit more because I got to market more. And I said, "Man, this is getting easy again. Let's open more offices." So by 2011, 2012, I'm gonna be at my 5 offices. I'm growing fast, and I'm hiring people to do the job, and every year incrementally, it got harder to get people. So by 2013 or 12, I couldn't find people to work. And so everybody who was working for me had been working for me for years, and the way that I kept people was I would just give them a raise. They would come back every year, I'd pay them more money because it's seasonal. I had an employee who had been with me since the beginning. She was in my first office. She did about 400 returns by herself. She's a great employee. That year, we were recruiting heavy, and I said, I need somebody to teach a class to teach the new people how to do this taxes. And she says, I'll teach it. And she's teaching it the first day. And after the class is over, she calls me. She says, David, I can't teach the class. I've got a family emergency. And I said, well, hey, is there a way that we can reschedule the class? Can we move it to a different time? And she just is like, I can't do it. And I didn't have anybody who could do it. But I had 40 people in this class, so I'm like, "Shit, what am I gonna do?" Got myself 2 options at the time. One of them is cancel the class, or number 2, I'm gonna teach it. Now, the problem with that is I still didn't do very many tax returns. I didn't know a lot about taxes. It's crazy, I'm 4 years almost into business, owning a tax business, and I don't know shit about taxes. So I said, "You know what? Well, I guess this is the sign and the destination. I gotta go that way." And I decided to teach the tax class. And I taught this class, and that's how I learned how to do taxes, by the way. I taught myself how to do taxes because I had to teach class. And I remember getting to the end of the season, I said, "It will never happen again." George joined the team that year, and I remember thinking, "Look, the reason that I'm in this position is because all my team, everyone who worked for me at that time, the only reason they were there is because they were getting paid.
Right.
They weren't there because they loved the job. They weren't there to help me. That year was the year that I said, if I'm gonna have a team, they have to believe in this business just like I do. They have to buy into this is a career, not a job. And I started with George. And I said, "Well, the only way that I can make that happen is I gotta share everything with George." So I shared everything. I was like, "George, let me tell you our revenue. George, let me tell you what we're doing. George, let me take you to the conferences. George, let's read a book together. George, let's work together." And then I picked other people and I was like, "You guys wanna join? Let's do this." And I would start book clubs and I would make them read, literally read with me. We read Think and Grow Rich. We read John Maxwell books, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Teamwork. But I would do these things in order to get better connection because I didn't want them to leave me and I wanted them to believe that this was an opportunity they needed. Over the next 2 years, I pruned off everybody who really wasn't worth it because they couldn't handle the book clubs. They couldn't show up to things and they would prune themselves off. And, I met my wife that same year that George kinda came in, and then her and George and I became like the the advocates to solicit people to believe in us, and then ever since then, what I have believed since then has been the only way to really grow a business is to get everyone in the business to believe in the bigger future and to be as transparent as hell about it. And that will attract the right people, and it will repel the wrong people. And I've grown that way in a lot of ways. Like back then, though, when I'm believing in me was let's go get drinks after work, let's go get some food together. Like it was very community. Even though, to be honest with you, the crazy thing about all of them or all of us, we had no skills. Like we weren't skilled business people. We didn't come, and then we added Raul a few years later, and then it was like we have no skills. And I said it's our responsibility to get them. And so the cool thing about what we did is nobody expected to make $1 billion in year one because we were all fucking stupid, right? Equally, right? And they knew I wasn't getting rich because I showed them all the numbers, and I was like, look, I would. There was a year where they made more money than me. And I was like, "Hey, you guys." There was actually a few years, but I'll admit to one. But there was years they made more money than me. And I just kept believing in people and believing in people. And then I just started getting better and I would read and I would just grow. And the way to build a team for me now, it isn't about paying people because now just to be clear, our team gets paid better today than is I am so proud to say that we have people who are very close to 6 figures, people who have passed 6 figures, people who will make multiple 7 figures. I mean 6 figures, not 7 figures, but they're growing. Now, there was a time where I was very cheap about payroll, but I couldn't afford it. But I told them, "Just stick with me, man. Just ride the wave. We'll go somewhere." And now I'm so excited to say that it's coming true. But it's really not because I just told I just shared with people where the future is going.
Right.
I've always done that because nobody wants to work anywhere, be with anyone. It doesn't matter if it's a sport or a business, because business is sport. Even a family. I'll be honest with you. Like nobody wants to be in a family where everybody's like, nothing's ever going to happen good and everything's going to be up. Like nobody wants that. People want to be. That's why people fall in love with church because they go to church and there's hope and there's love and there's encouragement, and there's praise, and there's worship. That's why people go to a company and they love the company because there's hope and there's praise and there's opportunities and people will go for miles and miles and decades with you if you can show them constantly there's a bigger future and you reward the behavior, not the tenure. The behavior, not the tenure. And that's where companies miss, and there's very few companies in this country that will ever figure that out. Most people have employees, and they will always have employees. And there becomes probably a point where critical mass comes. I'm sure for every company in the world that scaled really fast has had a great culture until they hit critical mass, and they didn't. But the people who were in the beginning, who rode the wave, they got the biggest effing rewards.
Oh man.
And by the way, there will be more people who will leave you on the journey than will stay with you, and that's okay. But you want people to be around to win, and if they're there for a paycheck, it'll never work. If all they're trying to find is just how they get paid more for doing nothing more, then that's not the company you need to own. You get paid more when you work harder, you
Yeah.
focus on the right activities, and you push people to grow.